All right, hello guys. I will do a second video for today. So here's the deal. I always been fascinated with South Africa, and it started long time ago. It's like you have sometimes country like sitting in your head. I'm sorry, with uh, stuff that you simply interesting in things and. When I lived in Eastern Europe, it was always kind of a forbidden fruit of knowledge because there was no information about South Africa and the not just that. If there was a law at the time passed by Soviet Union for their own citizens that if you are on the territory of South Africa, you don't have a citizenship momentarily. It was totally isolated country, and not just isolated, but isolated with information as well. So today is 22nd of November, which a while ago, a few decades ago, on this day, the President Kennedy was shot, and a lot of conspiracy theorists say that the death of him and his brother and Marilyn Monroe, everything is related to Cuban Missile Crisis. So actually, some of my family members were part of the game in 1960s. My father, as I said, was a nuclear scientist, and he had impulse technology patent developed in 1963. And my mother was an electrical engineer and was worked in a place where ballistic missiles were built, and it was a training center to control ballistic missiles. In very recent days, there was a thing with the ballistic missiles, and they had just information, and it just confirmed what I know about what my mother told long time ago. The regular missiles, they don't need computer support from the ground, but ballistic missiles, they have a stabilizers. They need to be controlled from the ground. This way they can control where the missile go. And this is what my mother was involved with. Not just the building. She was a young engineer. She was like, it was 1961, 1962. And she was even pregnant with me, and I was born in 62. And in August of 1962, or even earlier, the Soviets started to ship nuclear, I'm talking nuclear capability missiles to Cuba. Okay? And my mother's party was the same place where she worked. This is where they were shipped from. Okay? Now you will ask what it has to do with South Africa. It's very simple. 20 years later, in 1980, early 82, 83, 84, my mother worked in Angola. Okay? And she worked a specific time with Cubans as well in Angola. Okay? So then she became a professor in Luanda University in Luanda, again, Angola. So the thing is that the same people who were in Ukraine 20 years earlier, in the early 80s, were in Angola, which makes me believe that there is a different operations, not just the border war. Okay. It means the people who knew how to operate ballistic missiles were in Angola as well. Okay, it's a secret, and nobody still like to talk about it. As I said, I am just kind of researching our family past. Our family was, in a way, at very young age, part of a Soviet communist Russia industrial complex. Okay. Unfortunately, my father was killed 32 years ago, and his patent stolen. He was, as I said, impulse technology. And my mother died 2 years ago, and I don't agree with her death. I think something happened to her as well. and I'm trying to prove it. And the moment I tried to prove it, I had this shit flying on me massively. I lost my job. I was harassed. There's a whole bunch of stuff here in Atlanta, and just because of the fact that I told it's the some of the impulse technology and my mother's work was related to Africa. Okay, so here's the deal. What I think happened in Angola. The If there were operators of ballistic missiles in Africa, Angola, in the early 80s, you see the ballistic missiles, they fly far away. They don't fly like next to next city or something like this. You see, the border war was not exactly far away from Angola. It was just right on the border between northern Namibia and southern Angola. So they were fighting this and they were destroying previous trips, transports of water in order to stop irrigation in northern Namibia. Okay? And then why would you need people who were involved in Cuban Missile Crisis in the early 60s to be in Angola in early 80s, 20 years later? Remember Castro? He said that he will destroy South Africa as a country because of apartheid. Okay, and now the way I see it, not just the internal struggle in South Africa, but there was external force that forced Botha and FW de Klerk later to simply give up powers of white people. Anyway, so if there was like if there were continental, ballistic missiles in Angola in the early 80s, they would have taken out all three major cities in South Africa, because it's like 2 minutes. They're so close to everything. And this is maybe one of the motivations for the regime at the time. I don't say in a bad word. I hope it doesn't say a bad word. The government of Botha and FW de Klerk simply to give up power in order to save lives of South Africans, not to be hit by ballistic missiles. That's what it is. This is what I say. I will try to explore this thing. I have an idea maybe what even place they would have hit at the time. But for now, I'm just going to avoid this thing. And you have a nice day. Have a good evening.